Rule 1. Power begins the moment you stop explaining yourself. You were raised to be agreeable, trained to justify your actions, and conditioned to believe that being understood was the same as being respected. But that belief is the leash they use to control you. The truth is far more brutal. Every explanation you give is a doorway into your mind, and the moment they understand you, they begin to manage you. This is the first shift you must make if you ever want control. Stop explaining yourself. No one needs to know why you said no. No one deserves a breakdown of your decisions. Every time you explain, you submit to their frame. You enter the courtroom of their judgment and wait for their approval like a child hoping for praise. Power doesn't operate on approval. It operates on finality. Watch the men who command true respect. They don't explain. They speak once, and the world moves. Their words carry weight because they are few and deliberate. The weak fill the air with noise. The strong let silence make people uncomfortable. And that silence is strategic. It is designed to force others to sit with their own discomfort, their own projections, their own inability to provoke a reaction. When you explain yourself, you hand over your playbook. You reveal your triggers, your fears, your need to be liked. But when you remain calm, say little, and refuse to elaborate, you become unreadable. And what they cannot read, they cannot control. This rule is not about arrogance, it's about clarity. You are not required to soften your boundaries for the comfort of others. You are not obligated to be understood by people who only want to manipulate your reasoning. From this moment forward, every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, stop. Let your decisions stand without commentary. Let your silence disturb them. Let their confusion become your weapon. That is the beginning of power. The refusal to give them the satisfaction of knowing what drives you. When you no longer explain, you no longer ask for permission. You simply act. And action without justification is the mark of a man who owns himself. Let them wonder. Let them assume. Let them fear that silence. Because once they realize they can't predict you, they'll stop trying to control you. Rule 2. Emotion is a lever. Every man believes he's in control until someone else pulls his strings. And the fastest way to get controlled is by being emotionally reactive. If they can push a button and get a guaranteed reaction, you're not powerful. You're programmed. You're a machine wearing human skin. Power begins with emotional discipline. It's not about being numb. It's about being selective. You have to know exactly which emotions serve you and which betray you. Rage, guilt, insecurity. These are levers, and the manipulator knows where each one is. You think they want your opinion? Number. They want your reaction. And the more predictable that reaction is, the less power you hold. This is the essence of rule number 2. Emotion is a lever. Control it or be controlled. If someone can make you angry, make you beg, make you explain yourself, they already own you. They don't need a cage. They just need your triggers. Most people are walking confession booths. They reveal everything under pressure. The moment there's tension, they start talking, justifying, defending. But you, if you want power, you have to sit in the discomfort. You have to feel the fire rise in your chest and choose stillness anyway. That's what they don't expect. And it terrifies them, because when you stop reacting, you become unreadable. And when you're unreadable, you become dangerous. Now combine that with Dot. Rule 3. Predictability is a weakness. If they know your next move, they already own the outcome. Most men are easy to forecast. They lash out when insulted, chase when rejected, explain when doubted. Their patterns are open books, easy to read, easy to exploit. The powerful man erases the pattern. He becomes difficult to anticipate, impossible to corner. He doesn't react the same way twice. He keeps others guessing, never confirming what he's thinking. And in that uncertainty, people hesitate. They walk on eggshells. They overthink. That's the leverage. You must become an enigma, something they can't define, can't box in, can't prepare for. It starts with killing your own habits of reaction, the urge to explain, to please, to correct. Cut them out like a cancer. Predictability gives them the script. Mystery burns the script. If they never know what you'll do next, they'll treat you with caution. And caution is the beginning of respect. This combination, emotional control and unpredictability, is lethal. It makes you unmanageable. People will accuse you of being cold, detached, manipulative. Let them. Their labels are confessions of their fear. Because the man who cannot be provoked and cannot be predicted is not just powerful, he's untouchable. Rule 4. Mystery builds authority. There's a reason kings sat behind walls, not in the streets. Power thrives in mystery. The moment you're too visible, too open, too accessible, you become familiar, and what's familiar is never feared. Rule number 4 is simple. Mystery builds authority. When people can't define you, they can't control you. They can't anticipate your moves. They don't know where you stand, and that forces them to tread carefully. Most men give too much. They speak too freely, expose too quickly, reveal every thought like it's a virtue. But openness is not strength, it's a liability. Every word you offer becomes a tool in someone else's hand. Every opinion, every feeling, every confession gives away part of your armor. And when someone knows enough about you, all they need to do is wait. You'll hand them the map, and they'll burn you with your own blueprint. The man who keeps his intentions hidden, who doesn't show his full hand, who answers questions with silence or strategy, that man becomes larger than life. People will fill in the gaps with their imagination, and the imagination always exaggerates. You don't need to prove you're powerful. You need to be unreadable enough for them to assume it. That leads directly to Rule 5. Visibility invites attack. The more exposed you are, the easier it is to be targeted. Look at the men who fall. Celebrities, politicians, executives. It's not always because they did something worse than others. It's because they were visible. Their lives were public property. And when your life is public, your enemies know exactly where to strike. You must learn to operate without broadcasting. Let your results speak. Let your absence speak louder than your presence. Say less, appear less. Protect your privacy like a fortress. You do not owe the world your thoughts, your routines, or your weaknesses. Every time you speak unnecessarily, you chip away at your own mystique. Even in personal relationships, keep a layer they cannot touch. Never become so accessible that people forget your value. Never become so known that your power fades into routine. Your unpredictability is sharpened by your silence. Your respect is maintained by your distance. There is no authority without mystery. The men they fear most aren't the loudest. They're the ones who walk in quietly, observe everything, and leave without a trace. The ones whose faces don't shift, whose moods don't betray them, whose motives remain hidden until it's too late. That's who you must become. Let others post their every move, speak their every thought, defend every action. Let them be loud. You will be still. You will move with intention, speak with precision, and appear only when it benefits you. That's how power is preserved, not by being seen, but by being remembered. Rule 6. Vulnerability is a weapon rule. They will tell you to open up. They'll say vulnerability is strength, but what they won't tell you is that vulnerability becomes a liability when offered to the wrong people. Rule number 6 is clear. Vulnerability is a weapon, not a wound. When you expose everything, you make yourself easier to manipulate. You give people the tools to bend you, break you, and shame you into obedience. They'll act like they care about your truth, but the moment it no longer serves them, they'll use it against you. That's not connection, that's ammunition. Real power comes from selective exposure, a strategic reveal. You show just enough to appear human, but never enough to be cornered. You don't cry on command. You don't share every scar. You choose what they see, and when they see it. And if they haven't earned your story, they have no right to it. You were taught to associate honesty with openness, but not everyone is worthy of your honesty. The world is full of opportunists disguised as listeners. They'll nod, sympathize, and file everything you say for later use. Every fear you confess becomes a switch they can flip. Every insecurity becomes a door they can walk through. The less you reveal, the fewer openings they have. That's not coldness, that's strategy. Then comes Rule 7. Empathy must be earned, not given. You don't owe compassion to everyone who suffers. Pain doesn't make someone honest. Victimhood doesn't equal virtue. Manipulators often wear the mask of the broken. They'll cry to keep you near, bleed emotionally to keep you invested. They don't want help, they want control. And if your empathy is automatic, if your mercy is reflexive, they will drain you until there's nothing left but regret. A Machiavellian mind understands that empathy is power. It can be healing, or it can be a leash. And if you give it away too easily, people will learn how to play you. They will fake pain, fake confusion, fake innocence, just to keep you soft. They'll act like they need saving so they never have to grow. And while you carry their chaos, They walk freely, unburdened and ungrateful. Your empathy must be rare, precise, and calculated. Give it to the ones who earn your trust through action, not emotion. Show kindness where there is accountability. Offer care where there is reciprocity, but never bleed for people who only want your blood. The man who masters selective vulnerability and disciplined empathy becomes untouchable. He listens, but he is not swayed. He cares, but he does not collapse. He understands pain, but he does not excuse weakness. He knows that his energy is currency, and he spends it only where it multiplies. Be that man, the one who feels deeply but hides it well, the one who speaks from power, not from pain, the one who gives, not because he must, but because he chooses. That is the architecture of emotional dominance. Rule 8. Guilt is a leash. Most men don't need chains to be controlled. They carry their own, and the strongest one is guilt. Rule number 8 is this. Guilt is a leash. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It tells you you're selfish when you say no. It tells you you're cruel when you set a boundary. It asks, how could you? Every time you protect yourself. But that voice isn't yours. It was trained into you by people who learned early on that guilt is more reliable than force. Look closely. Guilt has shaped most of your behavior. You agree to things you don't want. You apologize when you've done nothing wrong. You explain, soften, and sacrifice, not because you want to, but because the alternative makes you feel like a villain. And someone benefits from that. Someone who has no problem watching you bend. They never ask directly. They just let you drown in the discomfort of disappointing them. But here's the truth. Guilt is not morality. Guilt is a tool. And when you let it steer your decisions, you're not being noble. You're being handled. If someone's disappointment controls you, they control you. It doesn't matter how kind they seem. If your peace comes second to their feelings, you are not free. To break this, you have to get comfortable being misunderstood. You have to let people call you selfish and not correct them. You have to sit in the silence after you say no and not try to fix their reaction. Their disappointment is not your responsibility. Their discomfort is not your burden. And once you learn to sit with it, the leash snaps. Now, rule 9, flattery is a cage. People think praise is harmless, but for the manipulator, it's bait. The moment they see your hunger for validation, they know exactly how to lead you. They compliment your loyalty, your kindness, your work ethic, not because they admire it, but because they want more of it. You'll work harder for their approval. You'll overextend to maintain the image they fed you. And you'll never realize that what they admire is your usefulness, not your worth. Flattery is a mirror, but it's warped. It shows you what they want you to be. And most men become addicted to their reflection. They need to be told they're good, generous, capable. They need to be liked, and that need is where they lose power. Because the moment you need praise, you've given someone else the ability to define your value. You must treat compliments like alcohol, enjoyable in moderation, but dangerous in excess. Smile, nod, move on, but never let it steer you. Never let it become a reason to betray your boundaries. The man who cannot be guilted, who cannot be bribed with flattery, is a threat. He operates outside the emotional economy. He cannot be pulled. He cannot be bought. That man is not just respected, he's untouchable. Rule 10, loyalty is a transaction. You've been taught that loyalty is a virtue, that being dependable makes you strong. But the truth is more ruthless. Loyalty is a transaction, and often you're the only one paying. Rule number 10 is this. Loyalty is a transaction. When unexamined, it becomes a weapon used against you. The people who demand your loyalty are usually the ones offering the least in return. They don't want your support. They want your silence, your sacrifice, your obedience. They call it being there for them. But what they really mean is staying where they put you. The loyal man is often a tired man, a man who carries weight that isn't his, who stays in relationships, jobs, systems long past their worth, all because he's afraid to break an unspoken agreement. But loyalty should never cost you your dignity. It should never demand that you stay small to keep someone else comfortable. The manipulator sees loyalty as a trap. The longer you've been loyal, the more they expect. And if you finally say no, if you draw a line, they won't thank you for everything you've given. They'll curse you for stopping. That's how the transaction works. The moment you stop paying, they call you ungrateful. Rule 11. Growth will be punished. The moment you evolve, the people who depended on your weakness will take it personally. They will accuse you of changing. They'll say you've become arrogant, distant, selfish, and in their world, you have. Because your growth exposes their comfort zone. Your boundaries reveal their entitlement. Your silence unmasks their need for control. They were never supporting you. They were surviving off your compliance. As long as you were predictable, easy to read, easy to please, you were safe to them. But the moment you question their authority, refuse their demands, or seek your own path, you become a threat. Don't expect applause for evolving. Expect resistance. Expect guilt trips, cold shoulders, passive aggression. Expect to be called disloyal for simply choosing yourself. And don't take it personally. It's not really about you. It's about the version of you they can no longer control. This is the cost of transformation. You will lose the people who loved your weakness. You will be misunderstood. You will be called the villain in stories you were once the hero of. But let them talk. Let them grieve the version of you that served their comfort. You have no obligation to stay broken just because they liked you better that way. The man who understands that loyalty must be mutual and that growth is a threat to those who never intended to grow with him, that man becomes free. Not comfortable, not popular, but free. And in this world, that freedom is the rarest form of power. Rule 12. Dependence is control. They won't chain you with threats. They'll chain you with comfort, favors, and familiarity. And before you realize it, you'll be trapped, not by force, but by convenience. Rule number 12 is simple. Dependence is control. When they know you need them, their approval, their money, their presence, they own you, not physically, but psychologically. And that leash is far harder to break because you tied it yourself. The manipulator's goal is never your freedom. It's your reliance. They want you needing them more than they need you. They want your world to orbit theirs, so they position themselves as irreplaceable, the one who gets you, the one who supports you, the one who means well. But behind that warmth is a quiet message. Don't leave. You won't survive without me. And many men believe it. Dependency doesn't have to feel like weakness. It often disguises itself as comfort. The familiar relationship you tolerate, the job you hate but won't leave, the friendship that drains you but feels safe. All because the unknown is scarier than the discomfort you've learned to accept. But the longer you stay dependent, the more your choices narrow. And one day, you'll realize you're not living, you're managing someone else's terms. Rule 13. Exhaustion is compliance. Most systems, relationships, institutions, workplaces are designed to wear you down, just enough that you won't fight back. They don't need to break you. They just need to keep you busy, tired, slightly anxious. Because a drained man won't rebel. He won't question. He won't walk away. He'll just survive, quietly, predictably. The modern world rewards overcommitment. You're praised for being available, loyal, always working, always responsive. But that constant output turns you into a servant, not a sovereign. And the truth is, the more exhausted you are, the easier you are to mold. You'll say yes when you want to say no. You'll agree to avoid conflict. You'll give pieces of yourself away just to keep the peace. That's not responsibility, that's surrender. You must recognize when your energy is being harvested, not honored. You must learn to protect your time like your life depends on it, because it does. A man without time, without rest, without clarity, becomes easy to manage. He becomes forgettable, replaceable, lost in the machinery of other people's agendas. Break that cycle. Disengage from what drains you. Create distance from what weakens you. Make peace with being alone if that's the price of regaining control. Because the man who does not need anyone and who refuses to live in constant burnout becomes something dangerous. A man no one can herd, persuade, or predict. Dependence makes you small. Exhaustion makes you silent. But clarity and distance will make you powerful. Rule 14. Weaponized empathy is emotional theft. Empathy is not your weakness until someone decides to make it one. Rule number 14 is this. Weaponized empathy is emotional theft. You've been taught to care, to listen, to give others the benefit of the doubt. And while those instincts make you human, they also make you a target, because manipulators don't just want your help. They want your attention, your energy, your guilt, and they know exactly how to get it. They won't demand. They'll bleed. They'll tell you how hard life is, how much they've suffered, how no one understands them but you. And you, being decent, will lean in. You'll listen. You'll absorb. You'll give. Not because you're weak, but because you haven't yet learned how your compassion is being used to keep you tethered. The trick is simple. They stay broken, so you stay close. And the more chaos they create, the more you feel responsible for saving them. But you're not saving them, you're carrying them. And the more you carry, the more they depend on your strength while offering nothing in return. You must separate your empathy from your responsibility. You can feel for someone without fixing them. You can care without collapsing. And once you realize that not every cry is honest, not every story is sincere, you begin to reclaim your power. They don't want healing, they want control. And your endless giving keeps them centered in a drama they don't intend to end. Rule 15. Scarcity builds value. The more available you are, the less they appreciate you. The more you respond, the more they expect. And what they expect, they eventually ignore. This is basic human psychology. We don't treasure what we can access endlessly. We only respect what feels limited, guarded, exclusive, rare. You think you're being kind by always being there, by replying instantly, by saying yes again and again. But what you're really doing is teaching them that your presence costs nothing. And anything that costs nothing eventually means nothing. This doesn't make them evil, it makes them human. But you must be more than human. You must be sovereign. And sovereignty requires discipline, the ability to say no, to disappear when needed, to protect your energy from those who mistake it for a free resource. Start showing them your value by creating distance. Be harder to reach. Be less reactive. Let silence replace explanation. Let absence replace availability. And watch how quickly they begin to question what they took for granted. A man who guards his empathy and limits his access is not selfish. He's strategic because he understands that being endlessly available to everyone leaves nothing for himself. And nothing is exactly what people will leave you with if you don't change the terms. Rule 16. Walking away is leverage. There's one move that flips the entire game in your favor. You don't need to shout. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to beg. You simply walk away and everything changes. Rule number 16 is this. Walking away is your greatest leverage. When people know you can leave, they treat you differently. They measure their words. They hesitate before pushing. They realize there's a line, and if they cross it, you're gone. But most people never use this power. They stay where they're disrespected. They explain where they should exit. They hope things improve instead of enforcing consequences. Why? Because walking away means facing the unknown, and for the emotionally dependent, discomfort is scarier than mistreatment. But here's the truth. If they know you won't leave, they'll never change. They'll offend, apologize, repeat, because they trust your tolerance more than your boundaries. The man who can walk away, who needs no one more than he needs his own peace, becomes untouchable, not because he's cruel, but because he cannot be owned. And when you finally draw the line, when you stop explaining, stop apologizing, stop tolerating. Rule 17. Boundaries will make you the villain, not because you've done wrong, but because you've stopped playing their game. The game where you were always available, always agreeable, always the one making peace. The moment you say no, not out of anger, but certainty, they will resist. They'll call you selfish, cold, arrogant, not because you hurt them, but because you stopped enabling them. You'll be accused of being difficult when you stop being easy to use. You'll be painted as the problem simply for choosing yourself. But don't fall for the guilt. This is how power reclaims itself. They must test your boundary. They must push against it. They must see if the new version of you is permanent or just another performance. And this is where most men fold. They defend their boundary. They over-explain it. They try to prove they're still good. And just like that, the leash tightens again. Understand this. When you enforce a boundary, you will be misunderstood. You will lose people who only liked the version of you they could manipulate. And that is the point. You are not building a life that pleases everyone. You are building a life that protects your dignity. If that offends them, let them be offended. Walking away doesn't mean slamming doors. It means knowing your worth and refusing to stay where it's ignored. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being hostile. It means finally enforcing a standard that should have been there all along. And if that turns you into the villain in someone else's story, so be it. Better to be the villain they fear than the puppet they use. Machiavelli's 18 dangerous rules of power. Power doesn't come to the loudest man in the room. It comes to the one who understands the room and doesn't need it. Machiavelli didn't write for the weak. He wrote for men who wanted to rule in a world full of liars, manipulators, and cowards. If you've made it this far, then you're not looking for comfort, you're looking for control. Here are the 18 dangerous rules they hope you never learn, because once you do, they can never use you again. Rule number 18, never be needed. The man who can walk away is the one they obey. These rules aren't for popularity, they're for power. They will not make you loved by the masses, but they will make you respected by the people who matter, and feared by the ones who used to control you. Use them, live them, etch them into your blood. Because the world doesn't reward submission, it rewards precision, restraint, and the willingness to walk away from anything that tries to shrink you. In a world full of weak men begging to be liked, be the one they never saw coming. Be the standard they whisper about, the storm they can't forecast, the silence they can't manipulate. That's the game, and now you know how to play it.